This episode has been brought to you in part by Canderel and Kingset Capital. Coming soon, affordable luxury condominium living at 908 St. Clair West. Nestled into a vibrant, one-of-a-kind neighborhood, 908 St. Clair West is a modern treasure, offering a sophisticated lifestyle inspired by St. Clair Village and prestigious Forest Hill. Register today at 908stclairwest.com.
No, it was in December when I was at recess, when that kid's brother sent him the article saying, quote, Israel doesn't exist.
This was from like The Guardian. That's
more like, anti-Israel. But then the Heil Hitler, was that a repeated episode or was that just once?
Pretty sure it was twice.
That is the actual Jewish teenager from Toronto's Charles H. Best Middle School, describing a series of upsetting incidents that he's experienced in the last few months. The board, the principal, even Jewish groups call it antisemitism. There's talk of it being called a hate crime. They've launched an investigation. They're bringing in training. The kids who did it are facing consequences. And certainly what happened to their son definitely angered his parents, Dr. Yaniv and Shirra Berliner. But they're now convinced that at least some of the swastika in the classroom, and maybe even the Heil Hitler salutes, were, in their words, just tomfoolery and ignorance by a bunch of teenagers who didn't understand the significance of what they were doing. That's why even though at first the couple thought it was a good idea to report it to the school, now with all the attention these incidents have sparked, the Berliners are conflicted about the impact it's having on the school, on the boys, and on the neighborhood. So they're speaking out publicly about their experiences to the CJN Daily.
It's very complicated.
I have really mixed feelings about it because I really feel like it was just not intentional to cause
I think it was pure. I think it was definitely pure stupidity.
Pure stupidity. I think if these kids thought, I think they just don't know that it causes a visceral response.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Thursday, February the 10th, 2022. Welcome to the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Shirra Berliner says it took her son a few days to tell her what had been happening in his school. It came out when they were driving somewhere in her car and he spilled the beans. Her son is one of 2 or 3 Jewish students in the class, and this is the first time anything like it has happened to him. He did attend a private Jewish school before switching to the public system during the pandemic. They also say the case wasn't handled in a way they were comfortable with. And if you didn't hear yesterday's episode with parts of the story, make sure to listen for the background. Coming up, the Berliners and their son will be here with their side of things. But first, here's what's making news elsewhere in Canada right now.
I'm Karen Mock in Toronto, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like.
An NDP member of Parliament from Edmonton wants Ottawa to carefully study the recent report by Amnesty International, which calls Israel's treatment of the Palestinians as apartheid. The MP, Heather McPherson, spoke in the House of Commons Wednesday. She said Canada should stop selling weapons to Israel and ban buying products from the territories which she says Israel occupies. McPherson says Canada has the obligation to stand up for human rights. Israel and other countries and some Canadian Conservative members of Parliament, including Marty Morantz and Melissa Lantsman, have dismissed the Amnesty report as anti-Semitic. The Liberals have not taken a public position, and neither have the NDP. And joining me now from Toronto are Shirra and Dr. Yaniv Berliner and their son. And they've asked us not to disclose his name, just his voice. Can you describe what you know about what happened?
So it was a couple weeks ago. Our son, I guess we were in the car or something, and he just said, something really weird happened the other day at school. I don't know. And he said that he kind of didn't know how to feel about it. He said some kids got his attention and he turned around and there were 2 kids in their seats giving the Hail Hitler salute and saying, "Oh, we're just asking the teacher a question." And so I said, "How did it make you feel?" And he said, "Oh, at the time I was just fuming inside. And I wanted to get up and hit them, but I didn't want to disrespect the class or cause a scene. So I just kind of like got back to my work and ignored it. And we were thinking, like, do we want to report it? Do we want to talk to the teachers? Their school has a bit of an issue with calling people snitches. That's kind of this culture of, if you go to a teacher, then you're called a snitch. So we decided there's, doing nothing. We can't just do nothing. And so he said that he would talk to them himself and say, don't ever do that again. I don't like it. I got really mad, or at least confront them. And so he did to one of the students who he's actually friends with, but the other student who's actually a really complete acquaintance in the class, he never confronted. So then I knew it just kind of went on. And then maybe like a couple weeks later, he was working on his own in class, and some kids were working in a group. So there was like a group of kids working with these like cubes that you put together. And it was after the protests in Ottawa, and then they got his attention.
It was after Holocaust Remembrance Day.
And so he turned around to look, and a student was holding up like this object that they had fabricated out of these, they're called linking cubes, and it's like a geometry tool that they use in class. And the student was holding it up, correct? And he just like went into kind of shock. And he said that, he kind of froze, really. And he's like, oh, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to make a big deal. I don't want to he's like, because I know people will get suspended for this. And like, I don't want to go through that. And we're like, well, we have to tell. Like, this is affecting your ability to learn, right? Okay.
So at this point, we're not clear if this is hateful.
Yeah.
Both incidents. When they made the swastika, it was a substitute teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So kind of a circus, right? And credit needs to be given. One of the boys saw this and broke up the swastika. It was a group of, let's say, 4 to 6 kids. So at this point, we're left with, there's some hateful symbolism at the very least, and he's upset by it. So we wrote a letter to his teacher, who's very excellent. And we wrote a letter on Thursday evening.
Yeah.
And 5:50 on Friday morning, she responded and forwarded to the principal. She was also made aware before of the Heil Hitler salute, which was the preceding episode. So that's kind of how it came to be, is that there were these hateful incidents and we felt like something had to be done about it. But we weren't sure if it was tomfoolery or if it was hate.
So, but I felt like it still needed to be like discussed as a class. I felt like there was like a gap in their thinking, that sort of they were fooling around, making interesting shapes. And they definitely made a swastika on purpose, but we just thought it needed to have some connection between the role of images and their visceral response. Right?
So let me step in here for a second. So has the school, your child, had any Holocaust training as a class or anti-racism training? I mean, they're in grade 8 now, right? So
yeah, they have. They've had a lot. But like, has it specifically? Yeah, they've had Holocaust, like they had Holocaust education the week before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's come out, the TDSB, Jewish organizations have come public about it. There was a press conference. How has this spiraled, and how do you feel about this? Basically, you weren't happy with how it was dealt with within the school because you weren't able to tell your whole story before it went berserk.
There was zero communication to us. We basically were not communicated with at all. Anytime we called several times, we were told it's under investigation. And so that was on Friday.
On Friday, about 3:30 p.m., she called my phone and said, "Hi, I'd like to have your son come in as part of the investigation on Monday morning. He doesn't have to stay at school if he's not comfortable, but come in to talk to me on Monday." And I said, "Okay, I'll join him." And she said, "No, you can't join because of COVID." And I said, "Okay, I'll zoom in." And she responded that she prefers to do investigations without parents. And I said, "Well, like, he's pretty upset about this, and I feel like my husband or I are the right people to be there." And she said, "Well, I prefer to conduct my interviews without parents." So it just became this. And then I just said, "You know what? I am really uncomfortable with this. I was uncomfortable. I think I have to go to the superintendent." And she said, go right ahead." And I just said, "Okay, goodbye." Like, I was fuming. And that was it. That was the last time we heard. The TDSB released a letter to all the parents.
Yeah.
Which I feel like they should have asked us first or had us look at it.
Yeah, they didn't ask us anything.
Yeah.
I just got a bunch of messages.
Yeah.
"You're on the news."
No, that was but the letter.
Yeah.
They should have got us to see the letter before sending it out. So it's caused a trust issue. Yeah. Like, now I feel like, forget it. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'll just go through like text messages to get people's phone numbers and call myself. Yeah, forget it. I'm never going to the administration.
So then, through a mutual friend, we heard that the boy that held up the swastika is ravaged by grief about what he did, that it doesn't represent his family at all, that he has an aunt who is Jewish and cousins who are Jewish. So we were upset that this boy now has gone through this investigation. They called his house and they spoke to his dad and they said, "We're investigating your son for a hate crime." So certainly there was no hate crime here. He's like a little stupid. This was stupid, but it wasn't done with hate. And that was our initial intention, is to figure out what's going on here. Is it hate, or is it just like immaturity or carelessness? And clearly it looks like it's carelessness for the most part. Like, we don't know we know a couple of the kids involved in this, and feel very bad about this.
I hear you pulled your son out of school for a while.
We thought that with our son leaving school, it would cause less drama, but then it ended up causing more drama. It was like this other kid was being targeted as saying, "Someone's leaving school because of you." And so then we said, "You know what? That was the wrong, leaving was probably the causing more drama." So then we pulled back and asked our son if he can be brave and just go back and deal with it. And I think we can be part of the solution to bringing the community back together.
So what comes next now? What do you want to happen next?
Okay, what do you want to happen next?
Well, I'm going back to school tomorrow, right? I probably just want everything to blow over, right? The kid that did it apologized. He feels super guilty. That's the most they can do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. This was not this kid's intention, right? Like, it was, it's been blown out of proportion. This was not the response that we wanted.
But the question of the Heil Hitler, that's still pending.
I think we're just going to leave that.
We're afraid. I'm afraid to cause too much negative attention. I don't know.
I would just.
I think it. Yeah.
I think I would just call his dad or something.
I'm very sorry that this has happened this way, but the Jewish community has been the target of the most hate crimes in any of other ethnic groups, right? That. So, the fact that this has happened to you, but it's been happening since basically May and September, 3 or 4 times a week at all kinds of reports in the TDSB and schools across Ontario. So, the fact that you put a face to it is very, very important and courageous. So I really appreciate you sharing the stories with us. And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Integrity, community, quality, and customer care. Today's listener shout-out goes to Martin Ginsherman in Thornhill, Ontario. He wrote in to say that he was upset about our episode covering the truckers' protest. Thanks for writing in and telling me about your experiences going shopping in your neighborhood while knowing that some people may not be vaccinated. And we'll end the episode with an update on a story I mentioned earlier in the week about that new private members bill being introduced in Parliament that would ban Holocaust denial. Well, on Wednesday, Conservative MP from Saskatoon, Kevin Waugh, rose in the House of Commons to explain why he was introducing the bill. It passed first reading, but it's still got a long way to go.
From early 1941 to spring of 1945, 6 million Jewish children, women, and men were murdered in a state-sponsored genocide we now remember as the Holocaust. Holocaust distortion, denial, anti-Semitism must be confronted with the strongest opposition and condemnation. Ignorance fuels intolerance. We must continue to teach the truths of the past. Education is the safeguard of history. We must face history with courage and boldly call out and confront intolerance whenever it exists. Passage of this bill will protect the truth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.